It is Tuesday, July 10th, 2012, and we have been honored with the presence of U.S. Senate candidate for the Republican nomination, Marielena Stuart. Is that correct? Marielena Stuart. Ms. Stuart, you've had an opportunity to view another video interview that I did with one of your opponents. What I'd like to do is start the same way with you as I did with him. First, tell the voters something about you that they need to know. And second, I'm going to ask you to distinguish yourself and your candidacy from your opponents in this race.
Well, I have, Mr. Sinclair, for 10 months been stating through my speeches in this candidacy for the U.S. Senate that I am an authentic, conservative Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate. I am a citizen candidate. I have never held office before. This is the first time that I run for office. And this is important because what I am doing is fulfilling Ronald Reagan's dream of stepping forward as a citizen candidate and representing the people of Florida, in this case, the people of America, from the floor of the U.S. Senate. I did not come up the ranks of the GOP. My efforts have been done with my family, my husband, and our 2 young children. And these are efforts that now have been passionately supported by conservatives, by conservative Republicans, constitutionalists, that truly want a change in Washington. So my candidacy is one that really emphasizes what a citizen can do with convictions and hard work. And I've come a long way since I started 10 months ago.
All right, I'm going to do the same thing with you as I did with Mr. Weldon. I'm going to throw out one of your opponent's names, and then I want you to tell me what is different from you as opposed to your opponent, what distinguishes you, what makes you the better choice to hold this U.S. Senate seat. And the first name I'm going to throw out is none other than Representative Connie Mack. What's the differences between you and Mr. Mack?
Well, Connie Mack is a career politician. Connie Mack, in fact, what is sad is that he has become a career politician that is not informed on the key issues that are destroying this country. Let me give you an example. In his district, in the area that is under his status right now as congressman, which is Southwest Florida, sustainable development has flourished. And sustainable development, which is Agenda 21, is pervasive and persistent in Southwest Florida, and very much so in his district. Yet Mr. Mack spoke at a dinner in Sarasota in February of this year, and he said that he did not know what Agenda 21 is, and that he does not know what sustainable development is. Well, if you do not know what sustainable development is, then you are not qualified to be in Washington, D.C., because sustainable development is destroying the economy of this nation. It is socialism. It is the agenda for the 21st century that the United Nations has projected on the world, and very much here in America. It has been imposed on the American people through executive orders. Sustainable development is what drives the EPA and what drives entities like the EPA to basically choke the private sector. So there is a huge difference between Connie Mack and myself. I have been fighting against sustainable development with a public record in Southwest Florida, very much in the area where he is, where he works as a congressman. And this is something that the people of Florida need to pay attention to. Another thing about Connie Mack, he repeatedly voted in favor of human embryonic stem cell research and support with taxpayer dollars for human embryonic stem cell research. Well, if you are pro-life, you would never vote in support of human embryonic stem cell research. So Mr. Mack is completely uninformed about what pro-life means. And his position is truly an erosion of the meaning of pro-life. Mr. Mack appears to not consider voting on the floor of the U.S. Congress with consistency an important thing to do. He has missed over 40% of the vote. So if we are paying him to be in Washington, then it is his duty to be there, particularly during key votes. And the excuse that he's now campaigning for the U.S. Senate is not acceptable. He still has an obligation as a U.S. Congressman.
Okay. Distinguish yourself from candidate Colonel Mike McAllister.
Mike McAllister, here is a man who wrote a book in 2010. On page 7, he said that he is personally pro-life, but that he does not believe that the U.S. government should interfere on the private decisions of a woman. Now, that is not a pro-life position. That is a pro-choice position. Then on page 8, he stated that he's against oil drilling. That's because in 2010, he was trying to appease the environmentalists. Now, the book that he wrote was a book offering solutions for Florida. Well, if you want to offer solutions for Florida, the first thing you would do is you would address sustainable development in Agenda 21, which is pervasive and persistent in the state of Florida. There is not one single mention of Agenda 21 and sustainable development in his book, again published in 2010, which claims to offer solutions for Florida. This is a person who has never lifted a finger to help solve Florida's problems. He is now running for the U.S. Senate, but the truth is that there is no public record of him ever doing anything to help solve Florida's problems. I, on the other hand, have been fighting against Agenda 21 and sustainable development in Southwest Florida specifically since August of 2008, testifying, writing about it, fighting against a public-private partnership that governs a town in Southwest Florida. This is a public record. This is a very, very intense battle that I have fought as a private citizen with a public record. Also, I have a public record of having opposed and prevailed in stopping a major bailout of a lab that wanted to locate to Florida at the tune of hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars. And this lab was involved in human embryonic stem cell research. As a pro-life woman, that was a very important battle, and I am very proud that I prevailed, because in prevailing, I was not only able to stand again in support of the unborn, but I was able to save Florida's taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars that would have gone to this nonprofit genetic facility.
Next,
so,
go ahead.
You know, Mr. McAllister, where is his record of action in defense of the unborn? I always say to people, don't accept the words. Ask, where is your record of actions? And that is really the difference between my candidacy and the candidacy of these other individuals.
The last one, because it's my understanding that Dion Long has been disqualified from the ballot. So the last opponent that you will face on August 14th is going to be Dr. Dave Weldon. Dr. Weldon has taken the position that he is strongly pro-life. Distinguish, what's the differences between you and him? What makes you a better choice for U.S. Senator over Dave Weldon?
I think that people should be seriously questioning the motive behind Dave Weldon coming into this race at the end of May. Because here is a man who promised to his constituents that he would only serve 4 terms in Congress. He did not keep his word. In fact, he went on to serve 7 terms. And the reason that he had to leave Washington is because his constituents were furious, and so was the press. So he had no choice but to pull out and go back home. Now he's offering to go back to Washington on term limits. But wait a minute, Dave Weldon did not keep his promise the first time. Why should anyone believe that he will keep his promise a second time? Now, when it comes to pro-life, Dave Weldon said in your interview, which I watched, that he makes an exception when it comes to saving the life of the mother. Well, you see, that is the typical answer that you get particularly from doctors that are very afraid to be sued by trial lawyers. A true pro-lifer makes no exception. Let me give you an example. If there is a burning car and there is a baby and there is a mother, you do everything to save both lives. You do not choose one over the other. You continue your efforts until the very end to save both lives. Dave Weldon's answer is not a true pro-life answer. It's the answer of a typical doctor afraid to be sued by trial lawyers. And also there's another very big difference between Dave Weldon and I, and that is the fact that it is clear that Dave Weldon has come into this race and has been positioned in this race by GOP establishment individuals. Why? Because Dave Weldon can be manipulated. Dave Weldon can follow the instructions of the GOP establishment. Let me give you an example of something he stated in your interview himself. He said that he voted for TARP because Paul Ryan made him do it. Well, a man of convictions that is truly a fiscal conservative would not be persuaded by anyone. So he is blaming Paul Ryan for his vote on TARP. That tells you that he will follow other people. Marielena Stuart cannot be controlled by the GOP. I will not be controlled by the GOP establishment. And the GOP establishment knows this very well.
Excuse me.
So,
we're going to hang on 1 second. I'm sorry, Ms. Stewart. It tends to do that on short files for some reason. Go ahead, because you were saying that you cannot be bought off.
no, and so this is why there is a big question mark behind the motive of Dave Weldon coming into this race. He is different than I am. There is no question, because my pro-life position is different from his. His pro-life position should be questioned. Again, I am pro-life without exception, and I explained it a couple of minutes ago. But it is truly, what also needs to be looked at closely is the fact that he has admitted that he can be persuaded by other people in the GOP in his vote. I'm not that kind of a person, and the GOP knows that.
You have, at least on the internet, a reputation across Florida with some conservative bloggers, and that reputation is as being a true, hardcore, conservative woman of values who scares the daylights out of the Republican Party of Florida or party establishment. Is that a fair analysis or an accurate description of you as a candidate in the Senate campaign? Do you see yourself as scaring the daylights out of the RPOF or the GOP establishment at this point?
Well, my objective as a candidate for the U.S. Senate is to state the truth of what is happening in our country, which is that it is being destroyed by the socialist elite from within and from without. And when I say from within, I'm talking about Washington, D.C. And from without, it is the globalists, the international globalists that work hand in hand with individuals in Washington, D.C., including individuals inside the Republican Party. So I am not afraid to state this. I am not afraid to say that the Republican Party right now is not offering a true contrast for conservatives, that it is mimicking the Democrats. And I think that this is worrisome to the GOP establishment. I am not afraid to say that taking a moderate path is simply taking a liberal path, and that a moderate path from the Republican Party will simply help deliver Barack Hussein Obama again to the White House. So I believe that because I am outspoken, not just about my convictions as a conservative woman, but also outspoken about the fact that the Republican Party has a lot of corruption, and I'm not afraid to say it. That is, I believe, something that they feel intimidated by. They also understand that they will not control me, that I am a Republican in the true conservative tradition. I am strong in terms of my social values. I'm not afraid to speak out. I am strong in terms of the military. And I am strong in speaking out against socialism, because socialism is phase one of communism. So if they are afraid of me, then it's because they are not doing the right thing. If they were doing the right thing for America, they would not be afraid of a woman who, with her husband and her 2 young children, has been able to travel the entire state of Florida and has been able to even win a landslide victory, 54%, at the Pinellas GOP in a poll that was conducted officially by the Supervisor of Elections. Now, how did I accomplish that? I accomplished that, number one, by speaking the truth, by reaching out to Republican conservatives that are tired of putting up with Republican moderate establishment messages. And I have brought back into an active state Republicans that had given up. And I am very proud of that. And the Republican Party should thank me for that, because I have been working for 10 months to bring conservative Republicans back into the light. And they have hope. They have hope when they see me with my husband and our 2 children and what we stand for, and the solutions that I offer to help save this country from socialism. The problem is that too many people in the Republican Party are simply interested in controlling the massive government in Washington. They're not interested in diminishing the size of the federal government. They just simply want to be in control of it.
Let's touch on that Pinellas County straw poll victory, because a lot of news organizations reported out of nowhere, comes Ms. Stuart. And yet, I spoke with one of the Central Florida Tea Party group leaders yesterday. And I told him that, personally speaking, I think the media has been unfair and playing favorites as far as the exposure that's being provided to particular U.S. Senate candidates. And he told me something, and I'm going to ask you if you think he's right. He asked me to tell him how I could give him a path to victory for your candidacy, or Weldon's candidacy, or McAllister's candidacy. And he used the excuse that no one has the money that Connie Mack has. Do you believe that the Republican voters in this state are interested in voting for someone simply because they have the money, or do you think they would actually vote for someone who holds the same values as them, as long as they knew that you were on the ballot?
May I ask you the name of this individual?
Off the record, I will tell you, but I can tell you that this organization recently hosted an event with Connie Mack.
Of course. Well, you see, this organization has been co-opted by the GOP establishment. And that is why they held a round table for Connie Mack. Now, Connie Mack, a candidate for the U.S. Senate, who has had the arrogance to state that the primary in this U.S. Senate race has been decided and that he's a winner, ignoring the will of the people of Florida and the opinion of the people of Florida. And this particular Tea Party group has chosen to basically roll out the red carpet, because by holding a round table, you're basically honoring a candidate. And they excluded the rest of us in this race, who should have been seated at that table, to also offer our solutions for the problems that are affecting our state of Florida and America. So I am not surprised that they would come out with the typical rhetoric from the GOP establishment, which is money. Now, the answer to that question is this: no. After 10 months of being really in the battlefield of the campaign trail. I am here to deliver a message to the people of Florida and to the Republican establishment that conservative voters who are informed and want a true change for America do not care about endorsements, do not care about how much money the candidate has. They care about how informed the candidate is, their background, their integrity, if they are truly a conservative, and they examine very carefully what conservatism is, and then they put it up against the candidate. These are informed voters today. So no, this race will be an eye-opener for the entire nation, that money and endorsements do not matter anymore. In fact, the endorsements that Connie Mack has received from his colleagues in Congress are being criticized passionately by conservatives because they do not understand why someone like Rand Paul or Mike Lee, who received a lot of help from the Tea Party, would be driven to endorse someone like Connie Mack. And what Connie Mack has done by declaring himself the winner of this primary is he has taken the typical socialist approach that politicians take, for example, in Europe, where they decide by consensus that they are the winners. Therefore, the will of the people does not matter.
Do you think that the Republican Party of Florida plays a part in this? Connie Mack's refused to debate with you, Weldon or McAllister. He refused to enter debates even before Lemieux dropped out of the race. Do you think that maybe the party is actually trying to tell voters in Florida who they have to pick as their Senate candidate at this point?
Of course. The fact that I have had to struggle and continue to struggle to be able to speak at Republican executive committees is a manifestation of how the Republican Party of Florida is really under the control of a few individuals who are kingmakers, who decide who the winners are and who the losers will be. So there is no question that the Republican Party of Florida is following basically the Republican Party in general. And this is the way that they operate. And I'm not afraid to say this, and I denounce it even inside RECs and Republican clubs. I let them know if they continue to follow this path, they will help continue the destruction of America, because that is not a conservative approach. A consensus by a select elite group of people inside the Republican Party who decide who the winners will be is a socialist approach, and that is why we have Barack Hussein Obama in the White House.
You mentioned that you have been on the road for 10 months with your husband and your 2 children, who I've had the privilege of meeting today, and this truly is a family affair situation. I don't know how you guys travel these long distances in that vehicle, coming out looking as well as you do.
We're very organized. We are very organized. To do this, you have to be very organized, and we handle our campaign very professionally. And of course, you know, as a family effort is wonderful because we are constantly communicating with each other, and we are all working, you know, at the same rhythm towards the same goal.
What do you think, and this is something that just popped in my head, you've been out on the campaign trail for 10 months, you and your family, driving all over the state, and you've been trying to meet voters face to face, up close, personal, talk to them, get their insight, and give them your opinions and positions. You have a candidate that, in Connie Mack, has pretty much announced himself to be the winner of this primary, even though it hasn't even taken place yet. The Republican Party of Florida has pretty much said that Connie Mack doesn't need to debate anyone. What do you think that message is that they're sending to Republican voters in this state? Sorry, guys. I'm sorry about this thing. Okay. It's on?
Oh, it is?
Yeah. All right. Sorry about that. Do you think that the voters are getting tired of it? Do you think that you really are reaching voters between now and August 14th that can turn around and shock the Connie Macks and the RPOFs and the media who has tried to diminish you or any other candidate running against Matt? Can you do this?
Yes, I can. In fact, I knew from the beginning that I was facing some very deep pockets. I knew that I was facing the Republican establishment. So none of this has come as a surprise. So I developed early on a very strong ground game. I have a lot of volunteers on the ground. I have a lot of people working behind the scenes helping me. And this is why this is no longer a situation that will be decided by money or by endorsements, even though I have very prestigious endorsements that I'm extremely proud of. But this is a campaign that is going to be decided on the ground by conservatives who will not tolerate the actions coming out of the Republican Party. And also, there's something very important going on, and I really take credit for this, that for 10 months, I have been letting the people of Florida know what a conservative looks like and a conservative behaves like. So now when the Republican Party says conservative, people will no longer take that at face value. And they are willing to expose who the imposters are. Because we have a lot of imposters inside the Republican Party. People that are using the word conservative, but they are not conservative. In fact, there are Republicans that are very active in the party that are involved in sustainable development. They are involved in public-private partnerships. And if you're involved in sustainable development and public-private partnerships, my friend, you're not a conservative, you are an imposter.
I'm going to get to some social issues real quick because it's only fair that we actually cover them. President Obama's come out recently saying that he favors same-sex marriage. And I'm going to quote unquote in a paraphrasing manner, I have evolved to this decision. A lot of people don't believe that this was an evolution, that this was a position in which President Obama has held from day one and is only now doing it for political purposes. Being a strong, devout Catholic and family and mother, your position on gay marriage is what?
Marriage is between one man and one woman. Any attempt to nuance this is simply an attack on the sanctity of the traditional family. Now, Barack Hussein Obama has always been a Marxist. And as a Marxist, he supports the goal of the destruction of the traditional family. Because when you destroy the traditional family, you can truly implement the one world government, which is the goal of the globalists. And without the traditional family, any economist will tell you, you cannot sustain an economy. It is the traditional family that projects an economy forward. So I was not surprised when he came out, but he's lying. He did not evolve. He always supported gay marriage. But the truth is that the gay marriage movement is an attack on civilization. And I am not afraid to say that this movement is really throwing, it's really attempting to destroy civilization and put the world in a barbaric state. And I don't see candidates running for the U.S. Senate willing to make these statements.
Well, I think you just did. Gay marriage has been presented as being a means of providing equal opportunity and equal rights to same-sex couples. Personally, I have always held the position that any of these equal rights that people are saying they're entitled to could be done with the stroke of a pen in legislation. The IRS can change the definition of filing statuses without us legislating what marriage is. Do you agree that everybody's entitled to have the same filing statuses or insurance statuses, regardless of whether or not they're same-sex couples, but can be done so without legislating marriage?
I think that any individual can apply for health insurance and obtain it as an individual. And any individual that goes into a hospital can assign through advance directives who they want to take care of their medical decisions if they're not able to do so when they're in the hospital. Any individual can prepare a will and decide who they want to leave their property to. There is no reason to change civilization in an attempt to legalize sexual behavior.
Okay. Obama Health Care, also known as Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. Barack Obama, in approximately 2 days ago, made a speech where he says, "Get used to it, Obamacare is here to stay." Democrats are saying that the Supreme Court upheld the legality of the law, did not rule it unconstitutional on any grounds. That's not necessarily the case. I think the decision was pretty clear that the Commerce Clause was not legally applied. If you win this election, will you stand here and tell people today, or sit here and tell people today, that you are committed to overturning it?
Immediately. I will repeal Obamacare immediately. That is the most massive, evil example of the socialism, the socialist abyss that we are descending into. And it must be stopped. It not only is an attack on human life, it is a massive taxpayer increase. And remember, a nation that is burdened by taxation is a nation that cannot flourish. An increase in taxation is another evidence of socialism. That's why we are a socialist nation today. And socialism is phase one of communism. So Obamacare must be stopped. It must be repealed.
If you win this primary, tell me, how are you going to beat Bill Nelson?
I'm going to beat Bill Nelson easily. I can turn Bill Nelson on his head and really send him into retirement or perhaps back into space. Because Bill Nelson is a socialist. He has always been a socialist. He comes back to Florida and tries to appear to be a moderate, but he's not. He supports Obamacare passionately. He has supported the law of the Sea Treaty passionately. The law of the Sea Treaty, for example, is an attack on our sovereignty, and Bill Nelson is supporting it. So I'm able to contrast very easily my pro-life position, my position in defense of the traditional family, as the basis of a sound economic model. I'm able to show the people of Florida and articulate very clearly how sustainable development is shutting down our fisheries, is shutting down our farms, and how it is killing the private sector, and how Bill Nelson has contributed and will continue to support programs that eventually end up as job killers in Florida.
From here, you're heading to Miami, I understand?
Yes.
So you definitely are driving across the state, that's for sure. What do you need? What do you think people can do or need to do to get your name out there, to make people aware of your candidacy, where you stand in the positions? What would you tell readers and listeners of Sinclair News how they can help this campaign or get involved in it or even learn even more about who you are and your family? What would you tell them? Where to go?
To go to my website. My website is rich with information. I provide more information than any other U.S. Senate candidate in this race in Florida. www.stuart, and that's STUART, 2012.com. They can read about my positions, my platform. There are issues tabs on the top of the home page about Agenda 21, about battling socialism, about life and family, about the economy. These are the issues tabs on the top of the page. They can also sign up to volunteer. There is a contact form. They can call us. There is a phone number. We have a very straightforward, conservative, grassroots Republican website that does not have hype, bells or whistles. It provides all the information needed for any authentic conservative who wants to really effect change quickly in Washington by helping send someone like me to the floor of the U.S. Senate and declare a war on socialism in this country.
I'm looking at a June 29th, 2012 article that starts out as, "You might as well call her Standing Ovation Stuart, because every time she speaks her conservative message, the voters respond with standing ovations." Has the media given you a fair shake? Have they given you fair coverage? Have they contacted the campaign? Have they tried to cover your campaign in a way that's meaningful to Florida voters?
The mainstream media has done everything to try to ignore me. They have received my press releases. They know very well about my landslide victory at the Pinellas GOP, which is really an incredible event in the history of this race in Florida.
Excuse me, I want to actually add something to that while you're talking about that. Not only did you upset everyone in the Pinellas County straw poll, the establishment candidate who has declared himself victorious in this primary to date already, Connie Mack, actually ignored the voters of Pinellas County and refused to even participate or attend. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. He did not show up at that forum. Only 3 of us were there. It was Dave Weldon, George Lemieux, and myself. And of course, I received 54% of the vote. George Lemieux received 34%. Thus, he dropped out a week later. And Dave Weldon only received 5 votes. And of course, it is assumed that 2 of those, one was his and one was his assistant. So effectively, it was only 3 votes from the public. And Connie Mack only received 12 votes. Now, this was at a GOP establishment. But then he expects to have the red carpet rolled out for him. And you see, as long as people are willing to participate in this socialist approach, because it is of consensus, of decisions through consensus, of deciding that he is the winner, we might as well get behind him and find things that we may like about him. As long as they're willing to participate in this socialist scam, which is a violation of our election process, truly, it is turning their backs on American elections and the way that we have always held them. This is going to continue. This is a kind of corruption that will continue as long as people will support it. And I'm not afraid to denounce it.
Can Republicans win in November across the House races, the Senate races, even the presidential race? Are Republicans going to be able to win in November if they continue to push moderate candidates?
I'm very concerned that Republicans will lose, because the moderate approach is just simply an approach of appeasement. It is not really standing for true solutions. The solutions for this nation, the solutions that will help save this nation, have to be solid, conservative solutions. And the moderate approach is always an approach of compromise. And it is compromise that allowed Barack Hussein Obama to enter the White House. So I always say, if you do not abandon the moderate approach in the Republican Party, you will simply reopen the door for Barack Hussein Obama.
In a conversation with a political strategist recently, I had brought up the issue that Connie Mack had missed an exorbitant percentage of House votes.
Over 40%.
And in fact, in the last 10 out of the last 13 quarters, he has missed far more than the average of any and all congressmen and women as far as votes. And someone explained to me that we were being deceptive by calling him out for missing votes. And they said, you don't understand the way the game is played. Before they take a vote to the floor, they already know who's voting yes and who's voting no. Connie Mack has always been, rather than vote with the Democrats, he just simply doesn't vote at all. And by doing so, he puts his thumb in the eye of the Republican leadership, letting them know he's not happy with them. Do you accept that as being an accurate description or an excuse? Wouldn't you think that any congressman or woman or senator, if they oppose something, they would have the nerve to stand there and vote the way they truly felt, as opposed to saying, oh, I'm not going to be there to vote?
Of course.
And play it off?
You see, this is typical of somebody who tries to come into the room through the window instead of walking in through the front door. This is why Connie Mack lacks leadership qualities. He's not a leader. Connie Mack, a leader, would stand there, would cast his vote, it would make a statement of conservative convictions. Connie Mack is incapable of doing that. In fact, Connie Mack has never stood on the floor of the U.S. Congress and denounced Agenda 21 or denounced sustainable development. In fact, he says he doesn't know what it is. So this is typical of someone who is not a leader. Connie Mack is in this race using his father's name. This is a man who does not have a background of leadership as a private citizen. He has been handed this opportunity to enter government, and it is very dangerous for the people of Florida to support an individual like this, because I'm not afraid to say this, he's an empty suit. He's an empty suit with the arrogance to say to the people of Florida that everything has been decided for them, that he's a winner. And is an empty suit that lacks leadership qualities. And the fact that he will not stand on the floor of the U.S. Senate and consistently vote and make the statement of why he's voting the way he's voting is a perfect example of someone who is not fit to be in Washington, D.C.
Well, Ms. Stewart, I must admit, I find your candidacy fascinating. I find it to be spot on as far as what conservatives or true conservatives are looking for in 2012. Unfortunately, I also find that you are running against some obstacles that, as being someone in the media trying to cover candidates and cover the election, I think you're fighting a very difficult battle when it comes to getting out there and be given a fair shot in the media as far as your candidacy is concerned. The reason we asked to do this interview is because I think voters need to hear directly from you. They don't need to hear what I think. They don't need to hear what the Republican Party thinks. I think they need to hear from you. And I want to tell you right now, I appreciate the fact that you stopped here in Port Orange on your way to Miami to submit to this interview.
I am very grateful and I'm honored to be here, Mr. Sinclair. And may I add that the people of Florida and the people of America, they know that this country was founded by men who knew what they were up against. But they had tremendous faith in God, and they stood on the truth. And they followed natural law, which is the law of the lawgiver, God. My campaign for the United States Senate is founded on truth. is founded on the U.S. Constitution and is dedicated to the glory of God. So I am absolutely committed to take the truth all the way to Washington, D.C., because it is the only way that we're going to save this country from the socialists. And I believe that I can do it.
I think you do believe you can do it, and I think you're going to do a lot better than people give you credit for.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.